discuss something about injury and rehabilitation, something that I have to go over quite a lot with people when things go wrong, and that's like, what do you do when things go wrong? You don't want to just stop. So this video hopefully will explain some of the things that I might do. All right, so first thing, rehabilitation is quite tough. Anyone who's had to do it will know, especially if the injury's been there for a long time. Very frustrating. There's lots of mistakes that you're going to make in the process of trying to restore movements and injured joints back to normal. And it's always a very bumpy road. It's never smooth sailing. You never get it right all of the time. And to be honest, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not really going to be changing too much either. So what happens with the trial and error is usually when I'm working with people, I'm regularly trying to look for things that are causing the pain. So because I'm doing that, there's always a chance that I'm going to set the pain off. So usually the movement that sets it off is the one that has to be changed, but to find it takes a bit of trial and error, and it takes a bit of investigating because a lot of compensation hides it. So it sounds simple to when you say, I just need to find what hurts them, but it's not quite as easy to do that. So, and you might need several different assessments and tests and exercises to actually find it. But you know, it's the most important thing to understand. It's vital that you do that because it's telling you exactly what the source of the problem is. All right. So, and also when things go wrong, as this video explains, what do you do when that happens? Because you obviously can't continue what you're currently doing, so you need to come back a bit. So really a good quote here from Dr. Stuart McGill is like really it sort of comes back to finding trigger, and I've used these quotes many times before, but you can read it to yourself. But basically, many back pain sufferers would experience a huge breakthrough in their recovery if only they realised it was their flawed movement patterns that kept them pain sensitive. So what that really means is it's the way that they're continually moving throughout the day that's causing their pain to be continually flared up. So if they find that and change it, and identify it and change it, they'll be a long way in getting to their relief. But during this process, you might find that you need to have exercises to come back, such as pictured here, and these are for various different things. So the horse stance one here is I might use for hip and back pain especially. This one's like a wall slides exercise good for shoulder stability exercise. This is again for hip and even possibly knee pain at times. And this one's again another hip, back, core exercise. Again, they're all sort of regressions of more advanced movements that make bigger changes, but they're stepping stones to get into them, and they're also things to fallback plans for when things go wrong. All right, and there's plenty of others that I'll get into, but there's a couple of key things you need to understand. So when we've spoken about the pain trigger just then, so as I've quickly gone over, is trying to find the source of the pain, but to do this you've got to deliberately provoke the pain to reveal the weakness or the movement to do this. So in examples here, it'd be back pain with bending, or knee pain with one leg activities where we see the knee caving in, and this valgus collapse and all sorts of issues. Could be the foot, could be the knee, but could be all of the above. But really you just know there's something flawed with this pattern that you need to change. Well, there's a bad way that they're bending that needs to be changed, right? So obviously when I'm testing this, I could actually make things worse. Obviously you want to be as safe as you can, but there's always a chance things can go wrong, and you can't use these exercises straight away. You're going to have to build up to them. So as I said earlier, it can be a bumpy road because you may think you've got things right, and then you try it again and it feels okay for a little while, but then you set things off again because things are just not right. You haven't done everything yet, but you didn't know that till you got in there. So and this is where a lot of people avoid pain because they just don't want to go there. But like I said, you need to actually find a way like that's causing it, and then try to change it. And this is where it's a bit of a paradox, and this quote is quite a good one. If you can't, you must. So meaning if you can't bend because it hurts your back, you must find a way to learn how to bend so it doesn't hurt your back, as opposed to just avoiding bending, because you'll never be able to avoid bending. It's always going to happen at some point in daily life. It's not an exercise, it's a movement. So you've got to find a way to change it, but in that process, it's like I said, it's a bumpy road. So there's always things that are not quite clear to you in the beginning, but as time goes on, they do. All right, so what this means is you need a backup plan. You need to know what to regress to when things go bad, when you do provoke things, when you make things aggravated, inflamed. You know, and I wish I could give you a set of exercises that works for everyone, but that's just not, it's fantasy land. It's never going to be the same for two people. So there's always, having said that, I don't have a set of same exercise, but there's a set of rules, I suppose you could say, or guidelines that help me narrow down the exercise selection to the ones that are going to be more valuable to me. And that there's one specific rule above all of them, and that's I use things that are horizontally loaded as opposed to vertically loaded. So this means that you're doing things either kneeling or lying on your back or on your side, or on all fours, anything but standing. Right, so this is an example of the deadlift. Obviously it's vertically loaded, so there's heaps of spinal compression, there's even compression in the hip joint, the knee joint, even the ankle to some degree. Where this one's loaded, it's no spinal compression because we're horizontal. All right, and where there is compression at the shoulder and hip is much more stability provided. There's so much more integrity in the joint itself, so it's easy to control. So these exercises provide me with a platform to work from where I don't just do nothing, I can still do things, but I don't aggravate things in the same way as the standing ones. So the example of the Romanian deadlift is a superior exercise in many ways to almost any hip exercise you can think of. And there's many things it can do that horse stance exercise cannot do. Such as it can really change how you bend in daily life, so it's changing a pattern of movement. Incredible strength exercise for the posterior chain. Teaches you how to protect your back during a bending movement, grip strength, obviously improves muscle mass, great bone density, all those sort of things. But it comes with a huge amount of spinal compression and potential risk if it's performed poorly. So there's a really high chance of more pain from doing it. And like I said before, you need to learn how to do it, but there's always a chance that things can go wrong. So that's where you need to fall back to an exercise like this. And the benefits of doing something like this is that although it can't improve the strength like the Romanian deadlift can, it does allow you to continue working on several important things without the spinal compression that the deadlift can create. So it can still improve the strength of your glutes, although not to the same degree or the level it may require, but it still continues to work on it. And it does improve the mobility of the hip, especially into extension, which is usually where it's locked. It does do a massive role of improving function and stability of the core, which is what the exercise is mainly known for. But the best thing about this is it teaches you, allows the horizontal position allows your spine to lengthen, and also gives the hip a greater chance for some more stability. So the hip that's on the floor is much more stable, and the one that's moving has a better chance for mobility and strengthening of the glutes. So really all of the things that are the missing components within the Romanian deadlift, bar the standing up functional movement as such. So the pattern of movement is the only thing that's missing, but all the separate components you can still work on. So all the skills are needed, it's just that they're not on the same degree, and it's just that one pattern of movement. So if you can come back to this when things go wrong, it might help you to decompress things. So therefore this exercise is the perfect partner for the deadlift, and for when things go wrong. So you can feel great knowing that you're still working on something, but without the potential for more pain or aggravating all the problems that you already had. All right, so instead of this, you can do this. What other things do you need? Well, this is a great exercise. Not the only one you need, because it doesn't really address things for knee pain, shoulder pain, even hip pain. There's a great one for hip pain, but it might be different things you need to do. So you need to have different regressions for different conditions. So once again, you need to be careful, but always remember the assessment and trying to provoke the pain sort of guides you on what you may or may not need to do. Try not to let your bias of things you've known or seen or heard about determine what to do next. Just sort of treat everyone on their own merit based on what you do with testing. So that's where this quote is: rehab the injury, don't rehab the person. So you basically try to treat them as a case you've never seen before. Let the tests guide you on what to do. So So knowing that the bumps in the road are coming, that you have a plan to address it when it happens with your relief workout, takes a lot of the fear away and helps you speed up the process of getting things back to normal again. And this is where the value of those horizontal loaded exercises can be really good, because you've got to remember, when we're standing, there's always sort of a protective mechanism that not just the spine either, this is also the knee, the hip, even the ankle. It can really sort of go into it on the ground. You might see everything's fine, but you stand and it all goes stiff and everything's corrupted and everything goes bad all of a sudden. So a multitude of muscles instantly activate the minute we stand upright to just hold our joints in place for the movement. If there's any weakness or dysfunction present, certain other muscles will go hyperactive and create trigger points and spasms even to hold us together, and that's just basically trying to protect joints from further damage, but it ruins our movements when it does so. Alright, so compensation is often what you'll see when there's stiffness. So in the case of this bending one, we'll see things like this where the hips have stiffened up. Now the spine's vulnerable to more compressive forces. So when trying to recover from an injury, this mechanism on red alert. So basically it's feeling the threat coming and it wants to basically protect itself. So the pain itself is not something that's wrong as such, it's a signal to say there's something wrong with the mechanism, the way we're moving, and you need to address it as opposed to just turning the pain signal off. So this is why it's important to continue to exercise, because just doing nothing won't do anything for that, but you've got to be smarter with what your exercise choices are. So obviously you know you need to address that deadlift, but you can't do it while you're in pain, and doing nothing will do nothing, will change nothing either. So it's where you're coming back to these relief exercises, and that's where your horizontal loading is invaluable. So like I said at the beginning, you could be lying on your back or on your side, or even kneeling on your hands and knees. So there's several unique things that happen when you're in this position. So there's a couple of, like a bridge, or there's a good serratus anterior exercise for the shoulder. The benefits of the horizontal loading, obviously we've spoken about several times. No compression on the spine, so help you to lengthen the spinal segments. There's no compression on the hips, the knees, the ankles, even the shoulders. There's an increase in stability for the shoulders and the hips. So where there's decrease in compression, there's an increase in stability. There's also an increase in mobility due to the lack of compression of the joints. So there's several massive advantages to working in this area. One of the disadvantages is there's no need for foot stability, which becomes sort of a problem, and it's a disadvantage for working on hip and knee problems especially. But the other thing is, the other probably disadvantage I haven't got on this slide is possibly the lack of strengthening that you will make, the difference that you'll make to the strength, but it's a stepping stone to that, so it's okay. Obviously less coordination required, so again it's another disadvantage as opposed to the foot stability and lack of muscles. Alright, so although these exercises are really useful, they're obviously not enough. They'll never be enough to restore things back to normal, and I've said several times they're just merely a stepping stone. Alright, so clams and stuff could be good in the beginning and help you when things are bad, but then on their own they're never going to be enough. You need to integrate them back into the standing things. Obviously just going straight to standing things, making things worse, is no good either, so it's where you need to fall back, have your fallback plan, but always knowing that your fallback plan is going to evolve. It must evolve to standing at some point. Alright, so your relief workout is critical, so it means to move forward with your plan, sometimes you need to move sort of sideways or backwards, and you're having a series of exercises to help you to settle things down before you can try again. Alright, so always remember, like, finding the pain triggers the real key to this. So it's not 100% the same with everyone. The movement that triggers it can be different in the same people, even though the pain's in the same spot. So remember that the pattern that you find that's mostly dysfunctional is the one that needs to be changed for the long-term success of your plan. So finding pain triggers. So if I started with back pain, it's typically stiff hips and thoracic spine, weak glutes and core, and the poor movement patterns, usually the bending or twisting movement. Alright, so they're sort of the common culprits, not always, but most times. With knee pain, it's usually tight hips and tight ankles. Again, the weak glutes is a common thing with this one, as it was with back pain. So I'll usually see this come up in poor squat or single leg movements. as opposed to the back pain, I might have seen poor bending and twisting movements. All right. With the hip pain, tight hips obviously with this one is usually very common, but not always. Sometimes it's unstable hips, so they're hypermobile. Weak glutes, tight glutes even, so the stiffness there. Weak feet, similar to the knee pain, we'll see weak feet creating instability and issues with the hip as it's reacting to the feet not doing their thing. I'll usually see poor bending and single leg mechanics on this one. All right, so sort of sharing some of the things from the back and the knee pain. With the shoulder and neck pain, usually the pain trigger is associated with dysfunctional scapular problems, and you'll see a lot of issues in the movement patterns of pushing and overhead movements. So that's where I'll often find I can aggravate things with pushing stuff. So whereas I'm aggravating back pain with bending, knee pain with one leg or squats, hip pain with one leg or bending, this one it's with pushing movements and especially overhead. All right, so that's where you can sort of find where the problems are and then identify them and then come up with your strategy to change them. All right, knowing that you've got your relief workouts to fall back on if things go wrong. So what exercises other than horse stance can you use? Well, there's heaps of them. It just depends on what I might use. Some of them are a mixture of mobility and stability. Again, it just depends on what I'm dealing with and what the person's like. Some people might need more mobility, where others might need more stability. So to save this video going for another 20-30 minutes, which it probably would, I'm going to break it into sections where I'll do video for each of the specific ones. So stay tuned for those over the coming weeks as I put it together for you. In the meantime, you can go to the website and check out. There's heaps of articles, heaps of, and there's special reports for knee pain, shoulder pain, back pain that goes over all of this in tons of detail and programs you can follow. All right, so check the description under the video because I'll leave the links there for all these so you can check them out. All right. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video and it gives you an understanding of why you need a relief workout, and hope that helps you out. And we'll see you next time.